Tired of being bullied by your friends? Are you sick of being called poor and broke? You should consider flushing yourself down a toilet. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Want to know how? Let me show you. So the first thing you want to do is open up Studio, go into the arrow over here, and then press on View and go to Explorer, Properties, and Output. Then insert a server script into Server Script Service and call it Starter Player. Then insert a folder in Server Storage and call it Clones. So typically when I make these types of videos, I go over what I want to do or want to accomplish, and then I skip over all the typing that I do and I explain line for line what each of the things I do mean. So if you're a bright student, you can watch and learn. Otherwise, if you're a lazy dingus, you can just skip over here and copy out the code. So the first thing I want to do is use the physics service in the game to create a collision group between the players and the clone so that each of them don't collide. So as you can see here, I got the physics service, and then I created collision groups, players and clones, and then I set them equal to false using collision group set collidable. The next thing I want to do is create a function that takes in the player model and the clone model, searches through the group, finds the limbs, and sets them to their respective groups. So I created a function called setParts, which takes in the model and the group as the argument. I use the for loop to get all the model's descendants and check whether or not it's a base part. And if it's a base part, which is if it's a union, a mesh part, or a regular part, it sets the part to its respective collision group. So in this scenario, I'm using the dry principle, otherwise known as the don't repeat yourself principle, to apply this function to the players and the clones. Now I want to apply this function to the players as soon as they join, using a player added and a character added event. Here, I use a player added and a character added event to get the character. Then I wait on the humanoid read part, and the head in the character before moving on, using a for loop. I wait half a second, and I use the setParts function to set all the limbs and the hats of the players into the collision group called players. Finally, I want to clone the character and move it into the clones folder, and use the setParts function to set all the limbs and hats into the clones collision group. So here I set a variable for the clones folder in server storage called clones folder. Then I use a conditional statement to find any existing model of the clone already and destroy it. Then I set the character archivable to true, clone it, rename it player name clone, and set the parent to clones folder. Then I use the function setParts to find all the limbs and parts in the character clone and set it to the collision group clones. I made a mistake. Line 31 should be character clone, not character. As a demonstration, click on play here, press on current client to switch to server, find server storage, and find your name plus clone. Then move it into workspace, and now you can see your own clone on the base plate, which you can walk through. If you need to copy this script, press pause now. Now it's time to make a toilet, so click on View, click on Toolbox, and type in toilet. I use the second model because it has a lid, so just click on it and set it somewhere, and there you go, you have a toilet. To set this up, delete the union here and insert a part into workspace. Use the scale tool to scale the part to a cube. Then use the move tool and drag this part down into the pipe. Then name this part target 2. Then duplicate this part by pressing Command D or Control D, move it up, and move it right over the bowl. Name this part Target 1. Now to set up the lid, hold Alt and then click on the lid. Name this part Lid. Then duplicate this part and name it original lid. Now duplicate this part again, rotate it so that it's closed on the toilet seat. Name this target lid. Now set the transparencies of target lid and original lid to 1. Click on target 1 and duplicate it. Scale it across the whole entire toilet. And let's call this one flush. Now drag all 3 of these and drag it into bathroom toilet. Then make them transparent. And make the can collide false. Click on the model and anchor it. Now find flush and insert a click detector. Then insert a script in bathroom toilet. And you're all set. So now I'm going to code the mechanics of the toilet. So if, again, you're a lazy dingus, you can just copy the code here. Otherwise, I'm going to be starting by establishing some variables. So basically, I established variables for all the things that I'll be needing to complete this task. Now I want to create a function that gets the character of the player that clicks this button. So here, when the player clicks the button, it returns the player, and I get the character from saying player.character, and this line just checks whether or not the character is alive. Now I want to get the clone from the server storage folder called clones. Now I want to set the coordinate frame of all the limbs and all the hats of the clone to the player. And to do this, I need to make a table of all the limbs and hats from the clone character, anchor it, and then make the character transparent, and then clone all the base parts to the player. So first, I created an empty table of base parts, and I searched the clone using getDescendants for all the base parts. Then I anchored them and added them to the table. Then I set the humanoid walk speed and jump power to 0 and waited half a second before making the whole character transparent. And I did this by searching through the character, looking for base parts, and making transparency 1. Then I searched for a face and destroyed it. Then I parented the clone to the workspace and named it blank. Finally, I used the for loop in the base parts table to check whether or not it's a limb, and if it's a limb, I just C-frame it directly to the player. Otherwise, if it's part of a hat or an accessory, I had to go the extra detail to make sure they were the same hat and accessory by checking to make sure that the special mesh IDs were the same, and if they were, I C-framed it to the respective hat. Now using the drive principle, I want to create a function that tweens the size and positions of the clone part to target 1 of the toilet. So basically, I created a function called tweenPart, and it takes in the argument of the part, the target part, and the scale factor. So if the part is called humanoid root part, I just broke the function because it's already transparent. Otherwise, it tweens the part to the target part's C-frame, and searches whether or not it's a hat. And if it's a hat, it tweens the scale of the hat by a scale factor of SF. Otherwise, if it's not a hat and it's a limb, it tweens the part by the size. So here I use the for loop in the base parts table again, and I use spawn function to tween the part to target 1 and target 2, each with a scale factor of half and a quarter, basically making it smaller as it tweens. Then I added a weight value of 0.1 to each part as it tweens. If you wanted to try this out yourself, you can playtest this and click on the toilet, and it should work just like this. To finish the toilet off, we have to add a debounce and add an opening and closing lid. Here, I set a debounce variable enabled to false. Then when the player clicks, if enabled is already true, it breaks the function. But if it's not, I set enable to true so that it can't click anymore. At the end of the function, I tween the lid to the target lid C-frame, wait for 5 seconds, and then tween it back up. Then I loaded the character again so that it returns back to normal. Then I deleted the clone, waited 1 second, and then set enable back to false so that it's clickable again. Now you can playtest this. Click play here and press on the toilet. Now all your limbs should start flying into the toilet and the seat should close. Now it'll open after 5 seconds and then your player will load back. Then you can repeat the same process. Now you can flush yourself down a toilet. If you need to copy the script, here's the first half. And here's the second half. Congratulations, you have a working toilet. Now, if you're ever questioning your emotions, you have an easy way out through the pipelines. So I will link this model in the description, and if you have any questions, you can always contact me. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.